Chapter 20. Dasganu's problem solved by Kaka's maidservant. In this chapter, Hemadpant describes how Dasganu's problem was solved by Kaka Dikshit's maidservant. Preliminary. Sai was originally formless. He assumed the form for the sake of his bhaktas. With the help of the actress Maya, he played the part of an actor in the big drama of the universe. Let us remember and visualize Sri Sai. Let us go to Sridi and see carefully the programs. After the noon arti, after the arti ceremony was over, Sai used to come out of the masjid and standing on the edge distribute udi to his devotees with very kind and loving feet, and standing and staring at him enjoyed the shower of udi. Baba passed handfuls of udi into the palms of the devotees and marked the forehead with udi with their fingers. The love he bore for them in his heart was boundless. Then he addressed the bhaktas as follows: "O Bao, go to take your lunch. You Anna, go to your lodging. You Bapu, enjoy your dishes." In this way, he accosted each and every devotee and sent them home. Even now, you can enjoy these sights if you bring into play your imagination. You can visualize and enjoy them. Now, bringing Sai before a mental vision, let us meditate on him from his feet upwards to his face and prostrating before him humbly, lovingly, and respectfully, revert to the story of this chapter. Ishavasya Upanishad. Dasganu once started to write a Marathi commentary on the Ishavasya Upanishad. Let us give a brief idea about this Upanishad before proceeding further. It is called a Mantra Upanishad as it is embodied in the mantras of the Vedic Samhita. It constitutes the last of the 40 chapters of the Vajasaneyi Samhita, that is Yajurveda, and it is therefore called Vajayaseni Samhitopanishad. Being embodied in Vedic Samhitas, this is regarded as the superior to all Upanishads which cover in the Brahmanas and Aranyakas. Not only this, other Upanishads are considered to be commentaries on the truth mentioned briefly in the Ishavasya Upanishad. For instance, the biggest of the Upanishad, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, is considered by Pandit Satwalekar to be a running commentary on the Ishavasya Upanishad. Professor R.D. Ranade says, the Ishopanishad is quite a small Upanishad, but yet it contains many hints which shows an extraordinary piercing insight. Within the short compass of 18 verses, it gives a valuable mystical description of the Atman, a description of the ideal sage who stands unruffled in the minds of temptations and sorrow, an adumbration of the doctrine of Karma Yoga as later formulated, and finally a reconciliation of the claims of knowledge and works. The most valuable ideas that lies at the root of the Upanishad is that of a logical synthesis between the two opposites of knowledge and work, which are quite required, according to the Upanishad, to be annulled in a higher synthesis. In other place, he says that the poetry of the Ishopanishad is the commixture of moral, mystical, and metaphysical. From the brief description given about this Upanishad, anyone can see how difficult it is to translate that Upanishad in a vernacular language and brief out its exact meaning. Dasganu translated it in Marathi, ovimetre, verse by verse, but as he did not comprehend the gist or the essence of the Upanishad, he was not satisfied with his performance. He therefore consulted some learned men regarding these doubts and difficulties and discussed with them at great length. They did not solve them, nor did they give any rational or satisfactory explanation, so Dasganu was a little restless over this matter. Sadguru only competent and qualified to explain. As we have seen, this Upanishad is the quintessence of a Veda. It is the science of self-realization. It is the scythe or a weapon which can rend asunder the bondage of life and death and make us free. Therefore, he thought that he who has himself attained self-realization can only give him the true or correct implementation of the Upanishad. When nobody could satisfy Dasganu, he resolved to consult Sai Baba about this. When he got an opportunity to go to Shirdi, saw Sai Baba prostrated before him and mentioned him difficulties about the Ishavasya Upanishad and requested him to give him the correct solution. Sai Baba blessed him and said, "You need not be anxious. There is no difficulty about the matter. The maidservant of Kaka will solve your doubts at Villaparle on your way home." The people who were present there and heard this thought that Baba was joking and said, "How could an illiterate maidservant solve the difficulty of this nature?" But Dasganu thought otherwise. He was sure that whatever Baba spoke must come true. Baba's word was the decree of the Brahma, that is the Almighty. Kaka's maidservant. On fully believing in Baba's words, he left Shirdi and came to Villa Parle, that is a suburb of Mumbai, and stayed with Kakasaheb Dikshit. Therefore, the next day, when Dasganu was enjoying his morning nap, some say when he was engaged in worship, he heard a poor girl singing a beautiful song in clear and melodious tones. The subject of the song was a crimson colored sari, how nice it was, and how fine was its embroidery, how beautiful were its ends and borders, etc. He liked the song so much that he came out and saw that it was being sung by a young girl. The sister of Namya, who was a servant of Kaka Sahib. The girl was cleaning vessels and had only a torn rag on her person. On seeing his impoverished condition and her jovial temperament, Dasganu felt pity for her, and when Rao Bahadur M.V. Pradhan next day gave her a pair of dhotar, he requested him to give a sari to the poor little girl also. Rao Bahadur thought a good chirdi, that is a small sari, and presented it to her. Like a starving person getting lucky good dishes to eat, her joy knew no bounds. Next day she wore the new sari, and out of great joy and merriment, whirled, danced round, and played fugri with others, and excelled them all. The day following, she kept the new sari in the box at home, and came with the old torn rags, but she looked as merry as she did the previous day. On seeing this, Daskanu's pity was transferred into admiration. He thought that the girl, being poor, had to wear a torn rag, but now she had a new sari which she kept in reserve, and putting on the old rag, stirred herself, showing no trace of sorrow or dejection. Thus he realized that all of his feelings of pain and pleasure depend upon the attitude of our mind. On thinking deeply about this incident, he realized that a man ought to enjoy whatever God has bestowed on him, in the firm conviction that he besets everything from behind and before, and on all sides, and then therefore is bestowed on him by God must see for his good. In this particular case, the impoverished condition of the poor girl, her torn rags, and the new sari, the donor, the dance, and the acceptance were all part of the Lord and provided by him. Hence, Dasganu got a practical demonstration of the lesson of the Upanishad, the lesson of contentment with one's own lot, in the belief that whatever happens is ordained by God and is ultimately good for us. Unique method of teaching. From the above incident, the reader will see that Baba's method was unique and varied. Though Baba never left Shirdi, he sent some to Machidragad, some to Kolhapur or Sholapur for practicing sadhanas. To some he appeared in his usual form, to some he appeared in walking or dreaming state, day or night, and satisfied their desires. It is impossible to describe all the methods that Baba used in imparting instruction to his bhaktas. In this particular case, he sent Dasganu to Villa Parle, where he got a problem solved through the maid servant. To those who say that it was not necessary to send Dasganu outside and that Baba could have personally taught him, he said that Baba followed the right or the best course, or how else could Dasganu have learned such a great lesson that the poor maid servant and her sari were provided by the Lord. Now let's close this chapter with another beautiful extract about the Upanishad. Ethics of the Ishavasya Upanishad. One of the main features of the Ishavasya Upanishad is the ethical advice it offers, and it is interesting to note that the ethics of the Upanishad are definitely based upon the metaphysical position advanced in it. The very opening words of the Upanishad tells us that God prevents everything. As a corollary from this metaphysical position, the evidence advice it offers is that a man ought to enjoy whatever God bestows onto him in firm faith, that as he privates everything, whatever is bestowed upon him by God must be good. It follows naturally that the Upanishad should forbid us from converting other man's property. In fact, we are fittingly taught here a lesson of contentment with one's own lot, in the belief that whatever happens, it is divinely ordained and it is hence good for us. Another moral advice is that man just spends his lifetime always in doing actions, especially the karmas, enjoying in the shastras, in a mood of believing resignation to his will. Inactively, according to the Upanishad, would be the canker of the soul. It is only when a man spends his life doing actions in this manner that he can hope to attain the idea of Naishkarmya. Finally, the text goes on to say that a man who sees all beings in the self and sees the self as existing in all beings, in fact, for whom all beings and everything that exists has become the self, how can such a man suffer infatuation? What ground would such a man have for grief, loathfulness, infatuation, and grief verily proceed from our not being able to see the Atman in all things? But a man who realizes the oneness of all things, for whom everything has become the self, must cease to be affected by the common foibles of humanity. Bo to Sri Sai, peace be to all.